All right, what's up, guys? We're back with another Armenia exit interview. Today we have the seventh placer, Liv. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Haven't had to do anything today, so we're
Oh,
living.
that's nice.
Yeah, always good to
Kind of
hear.
a nice, relaxed day.
Oh yeah, I could use some of those.
Yeah.
More often at least. But yeah, I'm just here to ask you some questions, kind of get your perspective on the game as you saw it, and kind of clear some things up for the spectators. That sounds good with you.
That sounds great with me, honestly. There's so many things that I want to clear up, so
Oh,
I'm
perfect
ready.
then.
I'm ready to go.
Perfect. Get everything off your chest.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask, and it's what I've kind of been starting with people, is, uh, so you're out of the game now. Obviously, it's been a bit since the game's ended, but when you got out of the game, and at this point, what's the feeling now that you're finally out? Is it like a relief, or is it like a kind of missing it? What's the feeling?
Oh, like right after I got out, or like
Yeah.
right now that the game's
Both,
over?
both. So what was the
Both.
feeling then and then now?
Well, I'm sure everyone could imagine. I was pretty sore after I got voted out.
Uh
Again,
huh.
no one else's fault but my own. It was totally me, which almost was a little worse, I feel like. I feel like if I was blindsided, I don't know. It's so hard because I feel like I would feel better about it. I'd be like, well, okay, I played the best game I could. Somebody got me good and I got voted out.
Hmm.
Fair. But because it was my own doing, I kind of had to like lie in the bed that I made. So that was kind of difficult.
Uh huh.
That definitely took me a minute to get used to. And especially at Ponderosa, I'm sure everyone saw I was kind of a mess there. But now that the game is over, I'm feeling a little bit better about everything. Like, when the game first ended, I was like still not okay with things, but now I'm doing better, which is good.
Yeah, and that's good to hear. So it's kind of like now you're good, and it's kind of all the stress from the game is kind of off.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I miss it. I really do. And that's the other part about like getting voted out in a game like this is that the cast was so much fun to just like hang out with.
Hmm.
Like I made such good connections with everybody and losing that was so hard for me. And plus
Hmm.
I was going to a jury where people I didn't know what the feeling was. I know I got Rachel voted out after I promised to try and help her.
Hmm.
And then James was someone who has been trying to get out from the beginning, and we've always had this kind of like weird tension going on. So
Yeah.
I was basically going from my closest friends and allies in the game to I don't know where I stand with these people, essentially.
Of
So
course.
that was a little bit of a tricky thing to navigate too.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I hear you. But now we're all settled in now. Everything's the dust is settled, and
Oh
we're all
yeah,
chilling. Yeah. I feel like
we're more than fine
we're
now.
chilling.
But
Yeah.
I
Good
do
to hear.
miss the game. It's been a
Of
lot of
course.
fun, especially I've been on break, so it's been really nice having something to like actually do and a
Uh
little
huh.
bit of a purpose
Yeah. Of
in my
course.
break.
Hmm.
So
It's
yeah, I'd love to
definitely
play again, but
yeah.
it's been fun. It's been
Hmm.
real.
It's definitely a lot of time, but I mean, perfect timing when you're on a break. Perfect.
Exactly. Like I
Hmm.
didn't have anything else better to do, and it took up a lot of time. It was so much fun. So
Yeah, okay, great to hear. So then going on to your game and the game in general, I wanted to start from sort of the beginning, the first tribal you guys were at, which was kind of a clusterfuck. Uh, to put it bluntly,
that's
to put
like
it
the
bluntly.
perfect word for that.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So could you kind of explain like what was happening there throughout that whole vote and just kind of narrate it from your point of view?
Honestly, that's like the perfect word for that vote and every other vote that I feel followed in
Uh-huh.
terms of my game at least, like clusterfuck in one total word. So
Hmm.
for that vote specifically though, um originally what happened was the game started and we were hitting it off in the main chat. We were talking about like professions, what everyone kind of wanted to do. And there were a couple of people in like the film industry and we sort of started connecting on that. Like I connected with Jack a little bit. James reached out. He was one of the first few people to reach out to me. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear from him for a couple of days. Like he was the first one to be like, "Yeah, let's do something. Let's play the game." And then he like diffs. So I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay, that's a little weird." Um, but then I started making connections with Andy, who was like awesome.
Hmm.
I started hanging out with Celine a little bit more, who, again, a lot of these people were just people who I got along really well with. So it kind of worked out. Um, And then Andrew came up with this B5 alliance where he went to Celine and basically said, hey, I want to work with the 2 girls on this tribe along with a couple of other guys so we have the majority. And then that's when Celine pulled in me and Andy, Zach, and Andrew. I'm trying to think of who else was in that. Celine?
It was you, Andrew, Celine, Andy,
And Zach.
Yeah, Zach. Yeah. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I got it. I was just trying to think if there was anyone else.
Yeah, no, I think that.
And so at that point, it was basically, unfortunately, all of us against James, Jack, and Tobias, just numbers wise, because we had formed this alliance that at this point I was feeling really close with, because I was feeling close with Andy and Celine was kind of the one who orchestrated everything. So that was a really nice spot to be in. I was not expecting that fast, but hey, I was taking it. I think what next? So, okay, that night it got so crazy. So originally we were gunning for James because James and Jack, along with Andy, had a little alliance on the side. And Andy was telling us this. He was like, yeah, I'm in with them. And apparently I was supposed to be pulled in on that, but I never was invited to that session. Everyone kept saying, oh yeah, Liv is going to be with us. And then nothing ever came of it. I never got it anywhere with that. That was all Andy's gig. So that was happening. And then we were trying to get Jack in with us too a little bit because we liked Jack a lot. And we did want to work with him. We didn't want to just cut him out completely. And so we were trying to like see where Jack's head was at. And then I literally asked him something like, so what are you thinking about the vote? And I clarified something like, oh, are you thinking Zach or somebody else? And he took that as me gunning for Zach. So he went back to my alliance and was like, hey, let's try to get out Zach. And I was literally like, that's not what was happening. And he kept on saying it, and he was so adamant about it to the point where he literally talked himself out. And I felt so bad because I really did like Jack. We kind of hit it off like the first couple of days, but he kept throwing my name out. I was like, bro, what's going on?
Yeah.
So he had to go, unfortunately. And then we went into the swap, which was interesting because I was actually in a really good position for the swap because I was with Celine and Zach, who, again, were between all of us on B5. Andrew was the one I had the least connection with, surprisingly, because even though he was the one that kind of initiated or kind of threw the idea out there, he wasn't really talking a whole lot with us. And if he was talking with us, it was mostly about game. We didn't get to know each other on a personal level. So I was feeling really good with Zach and Celine. I was really nervous for Andy, actually, because he ended up getting stuck with James and Tobias, who we just screwed over at the last vote. And I was like, oh God, because like Andy was like my number 1 at the moment. And I was like, oh God, Andy's never going to make it through. And obviously playing 13 times. Now that I know that, I should have been a little less worried.
Yeah, he made it. He made it okay.
Yeah, he made it okay. And so at the swap, we played one challenge and Josh ended up losing, which I found out later was because they were trying to throw the challenge, which I didn't even know at the time. And it made sense because Josh went from like the number 1 points getter on his tribe to like getting 61. Like even I got a little higher than that. It was it didn't make any sense. So them trying to throw the challenge make more sense than Josh just losing. So we were able to get rid of Josh, which actually worked out for me and Celine because we felt like they would want to protect Josh because he was a little bit younger than everyone else. He was around 14, I believe. So we wanted Josh out anyway. And plus, we didn't really talk to him. Like, somebody said it the other day, and it was really, really true. Like, the people who don't talk as much or not as active, they usually get weeded out pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just because you can't form a bond with them. Just simple as that. As opposed to everyone else who is there and is talking and is working together. So Josh goes out, and then the next vote is with me, Zach, Slynn, Hannah, and Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So at that vote, it got a little interesting because Flynn and I really wanted to work with Hannah. We actually threw the idea of a girls' alliance out there with Hannah, and unfortunately, we weren't getting a lot of good feedback from Hannah. Like we were trying to like work with her and like get a little bit of information, and she wasn't really biting. We were giving information, but we weren't getting anything in return,
Uh-huh.
which is never a good sign. If you're going to
Yeah,
work with
definitely
someone, you want
not.
there to be like a little bit of a reciprocation.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, okay, that's not good. So we actually decided to get out Hannah at that vote, which looking back on how everybody loved Hannah on original Myosin, I believe it's
Mm-hmm.
pronounced.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, I think that was the right move because Lewis felt more on the outs. And I'm just trying to think. After we got out Hannah, Lewis and I talked. We had like a whole conversation where I was literally just trying to get information out of him. I was like, all right, what do we need to know before going in? Like, who do you trust? Who do you not?
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me the impression that the Myosins were very, very tight.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we had the unfortunate rock draw where Zach went home because no one was going to flip. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and logically, it wouldn't make sense to flip because then you're just showing where your alliances lie in a sense.
Uh-huh.
And that unfortunately Zach went home, but it was also good because we fleshed out an idol from James, which we weren't really counting on or even thinking about. So
Yeah, hey,
that
it
was
works out.
almost like an unexpected nice little bonus
There's
from
an
that.
upside to it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There was a little bit of a silver lining. I'm just trying to think who was after that in terms
After
of boot order.
that
I'm just
was
trying to go through everyone.
James went out after Zach. It was the
James went
Lewis
out
vote,
after
yeah.
Zach. That's
Yeah,
correct.
and
So after we fleshed out the idol, Lewis flipped,
mm-hmm.
and which was really, really helpful for me, especially because James did not like me at all because members of my alliance had screwed him over so many times. Andy, I screwed him over at the first vote, getting rid of Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, I did have a question about that.
oh yeah,
In one of your alliance chats, I think after that vote, you guys started calling James like the Godfather. What was that
yeah.
about? Because I think everyone in the Spec Lounge was confused. Like he was on the wrong. He didn't vote for the right person anytime. Why was he the
So
Godfather?
that was actually Lewis. We were kind of talking about James, and that was another good thing I forgot to mention in my conversation with Lewis before we got to the actual merge was that I put the bug in his ear that James, there was bad blood there. We did not trust him at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with that in mind, he was sort of how what am I trying to say? He was sort of trying to find what he was looking for. You know what I mean? Like so he was trying to find proof that James was untrustworthy.
Yeah, yeah,
James
I know what
would
you mean.
yeah. So with that in mind, he started getting a really bad vibe from James when he was doing the same sort of thing with me all the way back on OG Petit, where he was just kind of throwing out names and then didn't say anything for a while.
Uh huh.
And then nothing would really come of it, but still, it was a very weird vibe from James
Mm-hmm.
that Lewis was getting. And so that's why he called him the Godfather, because he would make his stance known without actually saying anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Okay, need some
So
clarification on that then. We definitely needed that because I think the Spec Lounge was still confused about that. So that makes a lot more sense now. That makes a lot more sense when you call him
yeah, and
Godfather.
I think a part of it was like the thing when you mentioned like he was always on the wrong side of the votes, like that wasn't on accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was kind of always on the outs because of the way he played in that way. You know
Uh
what I
huh.
mean? Like him
Yeah.
just throwing out names to get
Mm-hmm.
people scared. I don't know. And another thing I mentioned too, it was so interesting how James would throw out a name and then all of a sudden that person was defending James, which
Huh.
I didn't really trust as a player because someone who could throw out your name and then make you want to work with them is a very, I don't know, I just don't trust that in a player.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it almost made me think like he was trying to stir the pot or make people afraid
Mm-hmm.
just to jump ship and work with him. Like he'll throw out a name just to cause chaos, you know?
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I see that.
And I think that's more what Lewis was going for too with the whole Godfather thing. Like he'll just throw
Okay.
out a name and then dip and then come back when there's chaos. But
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense now. Okay.
yeah. And that's another thing too. We were giving James very limited information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason why he was on the wrong side of the vote most of the time.
Yeah, of course.
Um, so yeah, James goes home next because Lewis flipped. And another reason why he flipped was because he didn't really trust James.
Mm-hmm.
And we had built those alliances all the way back on the new Mia scene during the swap. So he
Mm-hmm.
definitely trusted us way more than James, which was good and helped me out a lot. Just trying to think. So James,
Then Rachel's boot was next. The
oh
faded
yeah,
the faded
the
Rachel one. Yeah,
famous
of
Rachel do.
course.
Oh man, where do I even begin? So it was New Year's Day, I believe, and Rachel. Oh, what was I gonna say? Rachel was talked about a little bit as the boot,
Mm-hmm.
and that made me really suspicious of Lewis because, as far as I was concerned, we had just gotten out someone from his old alliance, Miacine,
Mm-hmm.
and Celine was always saying like, "Oh, Lewis is gonna need a sacrifice. He wants a show of trust from us," and I was like, "Okay, that's fine." And then all of a sudden, he was saying we should get out Rachel,
Mm-hmm.
which it was a little bit of a story change there
Yeah.
that I was like, okay, why does he want Rachel all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't make sense from A to B. And another thing too, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my thoughts
No,
together.
you're fine. Keep
Um,
going.
so yeah, it just didn't make sense why he all of a sudden was like, yeah, let's go out Rachel when this whole time I was thinking he wants to get out another OG Petit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that day as well, the vote for Rachel was taking such a long time. Like it was not a quick vote that day. I don't know if you remember, but
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
it
It was.
it took a hot minute, and I was like, okay, so they want to vote out Rachel, and no one's really acting on it. And then all of a sudden, I got these private messages like from Lewis and Celine hyping me up, saying like, oh, you're such a good player, you're so perceptive. Lewis was saying like, oh, you're getting information out of me. I thought you were gonna flip. That's so smart. And I was like, okay, well, if they're saying this to me, they must have thought about this before.
Yeah.
And if they've thought about this before and they're saying this to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
almost felt like it was coming from a place of guilt.
Uh-huh.
That's what I was thinking their intention was. Like, and that's why I thought the vote was taking such a long time because they wanted to keep me in the game longer
Mm-hmm.
because they felt bad about it. You know what I mean? Like, it just
Yeah.
felt like the actions of a guilty person. So I was like, all right, that's a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like thinking, okay, well, I don't want to go out, you know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I,
Mm-hmm.
and that's literally when I was like, okay, yeah, Slynn's probably gunning again. A little bit of paranoia. I will be real.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense looking back on it. But I was like, oh, yeah, Slynn's trying to get me out. So I got to get her out first before she gets me.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to Rachel and I'm like, hey, what do you think about making a move on Slynn? She goes, yeah, okay, I'm good with that. I was like, do you think John would be on board? She says, yes. I head over to John. I'm like, hey, what do you think about voting out Slynn? And he was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm good with that. And I'm a little fuzzy on the details of this because it was a hectic day.
Yeah, of
But I
course.
believe I went to Andrew next and was trying to like lay the groundwork a little bit. Like, hey, what do you think about getting Slynn in so many words? I was in the process of that. Then all of a sudden I hear Chumbo running around talking to people, and all of a
Mm,
sudden information is getting back to me. So I'm like, all right, I got to talk to Chumbo. Like, we need to get on the same page here.
yeah.
And we got on the same page which was good because I was getting scared for a minute that he was
Mm-hmm.
going to blow up my plan.
Mm-hmm.
We get on the same page, and I'm like, okay, I still need to convince Andrew. Let me go talk to Andrew. So I'm in the process of talking to Andrew, and all of a sudden, Lewis is coming to me saying, "Hey, have you heard that you're trying to get out Slynn?" I was like, "Oh my God, are you serious,
Oh
Chumbo?"
boy.
Like, and the whole time I'm telling Chumbo, "Don't talk to Lewis. Do not talk to Lewis." And this is a little bit frustrating looking back on this because it showed me how much Chumbo trusted Lewis and how much Andrew trusted Andy. Because they both said, "Hey, maybe I should talk to Lewis and maybe I should talk to Andrew respectively."
Mm-hmm.
Andy, respectively.
Yeah.
So I was like, shit. So I knew if Lewis knew, he would immediately tell Celine because Lewis really liked Celine at this point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he liked working with her, he really trusted her. And
Definitely.
so I'm like, oh shit, this whole plan is being blown up right now. So I went quickly to Celine. I was like, hey, did you hear this rumor going on that I'm trying to get you out? This is ridiculous. This is crazy. And because I knew if she heard it from other people, it would have been way worse than hearing it from me. If
Uh-huh.
I was able to jump on it and debunk it early, then I would be able to survive this basically.
Yeah.
So I go to her, I go to Andy, I lay the groundwork. I basically say, hey, this is all baloney. They're just trying to create waves. And oh my God, when I told Chumbo basically that Rachel was going home, that's when the gauntlet was basically thrown down.
Everything blew
All of a
up.
sudden, everything blew up. All of a sudden, Chumbo is like, "We gotta get out, Liv. You guys shouldn't trust her. Like, she's trying to get you out." And that's when Rachel started also going off in Final Tribal Council. Not Final Tribal Council. She did do that too,
Yeah,
but
that
in that
too.
Tribal Council,
Uh-huh.
she started like going off saying like, "Oh, you shouldn't trust your alliance. Like, what are you doing?" And fair to the Miacenes, like they put up a hell of a fight trying to keep Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really bad because poor Rachel. I literally said to her, I was like, hey, uh, do you want to vote out Celine? And she said, yeah, but I'm nervous about this going down. Like, I want this to actually go work. And I said, yeah, me too. And she was like, I hope you're not bullshitting me. And I basically said to Rachel, I was like, no, that would be kind of cruel at this point. Like, I'm trying to get something going here.
Yeah, and then
And
of
I ended
course.
up voting Rachel out. I felt so bad, dude. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, at that point, because the way I saw it with Chumbo, I was trying to work with him at first. He
Mm-hmm.
started running around. And I understood that because he didn't really trust the situation, understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him a little bit of a pass. And then he screwed me a second time. So after I
Oh
told
yeah.
him, like, hey, maybe don't go to this person, maybe you shouldn't trust them. Like, and I would know because I was the one closest to Celine at the time, and that was no secret.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just wish that he put a little bit more stock in that.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, fair to him, he ended up getting third, so
Yeah, I mean,
I can't knock his game.
uh-huh. Kind of worked out
Outlasted
for him.
me.
I will say though that in Chumbo's exit interview, he did say that's like the one of the big things he regrets is not going along with that and then telling Lewis. So to be fair, he does regret that. So
Oh, I didn't know
if
that.
that's anything for you, uh
Oh,
but yeah.
man. And then, okay, so the next day, the copy text, the infamous copy text.
Oh yeah.
So the next morning, I was still like, even that night, I was still doing so much damage control. I was like really hyping up this idea that all of these people were lying. This was like a kind of a
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy, what have you. Because I knew at that point, if I didn't do damage control and Celine found out, I would have gone home.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At
Yeah,
that point,
100%.
if
You were
it would
so
have
in
been
deep.
me over Rachel any day,
Mm-hmm.
because it would have been the hurt, the strategic, all of it. So I knew the
Yeah.
only way to save myself was to try and do a hell of a lot of damage control. So all of a sudden, I get a text from Celine basically saying it was quiet for a minute because I was busy with other things, and I'm assuming Celine was too. In addition, she was probably texting other people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, Liv, what's going on? And I tried to get out of it a little bit. In hindsight, I don't think I would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But she basically told me in so many words, like, she knew what I was saying because of
Yeah.
Chumbo's copy texts and
Mm-hmm.
the little chat logs. And yeah, at that point, I knew the game was up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I still tried. I tried to get out Chumbo. I tried to make something work. But when I knew she found out and she knew that I knew, it was just over at that point for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think if there was anything I missed. I tried to be as thorough as I could.
No. Yeah. You were definitely very thorough. I'm trying to think of anything you could have missed as well.
Yeah, any clarifications for the Spec Lounge?
Hmm. Did oh yeah, there was one thing. So when James went out, he said I think something along the lines of congrats to Lynn on winning the game. Did that have any factor in you turning on her, or were you just thinking about okay, I need to get her before she gets me if that starts happening?
That's a great question. So James's comment did not factor anything into what I was saying.
Okay.
Um, and this is something I wanted to touch on too, so I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
In order for me to win the game, playing the game that I played, I would need to turn on Celine at some point.
Of course. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, if the roles were reversed, I would have been, and if I was in Celine's spot, I would have been flamed at Tribal Council. So unfortunately, like Celine was.
Uh huh.
Because I played a very quiet game
Mhm.
that nobody really saw. Like nobody saw Andy's game as much, but they really didn't see my game.
Uh huh.
I Again, this is from just my perception of things.
Uh huh.
So in order for me to prove that I played a good game, I would need to get out Celine. But
Mhm.
that was something that I knew I needed to do in order to win, but it was something I didn't want to do until I thought Celine was trying to get me out.
Yeah. Of course.
Because I really liked the alliance. I really did. The Holy Trinity. It will always have a special place in my heart. Like, what should I say? So I don't know. It almost became more personal to me at that point than the game because I didn't
Mhm.
really care about winning or losing. I just wanted to go to the end with them.
Yeah.
But that was until I started thinking, oh shit, Slynn's trying to get me out. I better get her out first.
Uh
And
huh.
then that's when the whole fiasco started,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
unfortunately.
Mhm. And then
And that's
everything.
another thing I wanted to touch on too. Like, poor Celine, man, that was so my fault. Like, at that final tribal council, I
Oh
was
yeah, I
screwed
did want to
off.
ask about that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the final tribal council, what was going on with that? Because to some of the spectators, it kind of seemed like you were very much vouching for Andy, and you were trying to campaign for him to win.
Yes, but that wasn't against Celine.
Yeah.
They played fantastic games, the both of them, and I'm glad the votes ended up the way they did, and I'm glad it wasn't a complete landslide,
Mm-hmm.
especially because Andy was playing freaking
Oh
Dungeons and
man.
Dragons.
Yep.
Oh my god, dude, that really pissed me off. But I just knew that, and it's again, this is the same sort of perception challenge that I would have had, was that Andy played such a freaking fantastic quiet game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was so subtle about the moves he made. And there was even this one argument that came up at Final Tribal Council where Celine was like, "Oh, you didn't really vouch for Liv. You didn't really try to get her to stay." And Andy was like, "Yeah, I did."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the misconception there was that Celine probably didn't see Andy vouching for me
Yeah, and I
because
think that's the
he
truth.
knows how to work things in a certain way and
Mm-hmm.
when to like push on the gas and when to lay off.
Uh-huh.
Like even at the first tribal council, I saw Andy's game. Like he was trying to play both sides a little bit
Yep.
with
Exactly.
the J Alliance and him, and then with the B5. And even voting out Jack, that hurt his game a little. I mean, obviously not bad because he won the game,
Yeah, but I know
but
what you mean.
at the time he was like, "Shoot, that really hurt my game. I don't know why I did that." Like, I don't know, it's just really it's complicated to see because if you're not there with him, you don't see his game.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the brilliance of Andy's game,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And so then how did you feel when well, you know Andy played this really good game, but just a lot of people didn't see it. And then he comes into
Yeah.
Final Tribal Council and it's kind of underwhelming.
Oh, I was so mad. Oh my God. Dude, like, Andy, your final tribal council is horrible. I love you, dude, but like, oh my God, Celine did such a better job than you. I was considering flipping. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she killed it. Oh my God. Like, I was so tough on her, and she just kind of took it. And
Mm-hmm.
she was explaining shit, and I was like, oh my God, like, stuff I didn't even think about. She
Yeah.
just showed me how smart she was and how capable she was at that final tribal council, and I was super, super impressed. And she
Mm-hmm.
was there, Andy, Dungeons and Dragons, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that
man.
was, and that was frustrating from like an optics perspective, because I'm like, dude, you played this really great, amazing game, yet your final tribal council was trash. Like, it was just so
Mm-hmm.
frustrating.
Oh yeah, definitely sounds frustrating. So then you think that the 4-3 is a pretty good, as good of an ending as it could have been, where it
Yes,
was
I don't
close.
think it should have been a landslide, especially considering how well Flynn did in Final Tribal Council.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Andy should have won, because my vote solely wasn't on the Final Tribal Council. It was the game overall.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. And so then I do have to ask if there is one thing that you could go back, if you had a time machine, you can go back, change something. If you could change one thing about your game and do something differently, what exactly would it be?
Oh, I wonder what that was.
Well,
uh,
would it be, well, I assume the whole getting Celine out thing, but would it be like, would you just not do it, or would you try to do it in a different way? Or do it
um,
later?
Unfortunately, I think at that point there was no, it was either then or never,
Uh-huh.
because I knew Rachel was going out,
Yeah.
and I trusted Rachel to get the job done way more than Chumbo at that point.
Uh-huh.
And I knew Chumbo going out wasn't going to happen for a hot second, because Chumbo and Lewis they always kept the door open for each other.
Yeah.
And anytime I tried to like bring up Chumbo's name, it was always like, oh, well, we don't want to get Lewis upset, which understandably, but it's Chumbo. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, of course. It's
he's he's
he's
a big name and a big player in this season.
definitely.
So I think the move there would have been not to do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It literally fucked up my whole game. I was in a really good spot. If it wasn't for that, I mean, I wouldn't have won, no matter if I went with Celine or Andy, but I would have gotten further than I would have for 7.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely further. Okay, so you
Yeah,
just wouldn't do it, is what
I
I'm
wouldn't
hearing
do it
about
at all.
Rachel. Okay. Gotcha. And then
Yeah.
you touched on Chumbo being a really big threat. I have to ask, so if Chumbo by some miracle wins that final immunity challenge, he finally grows the strength to win a challenge, and he takes Andy. What do you vote for, Chumbo or do you vote for Andy in that scenario if they both get to the end and Chumbo takes him?
See, that's really hard for me,
Mm-hmm.
because Andy, I know, played this fantastic, very methodical game, whereas Chumbo, he literally was a bull in a china shop the whole way, man.
That is
Like,
very true.
like he just like he. Oh my God! When we were first marooned, I should say, like, he just took off sprinting. That dude.
He's like
Oh
Tony
my
in
God!
what was it, Game Changers? Instantly just running
Exactly.
around.
He's exactly Tony. That's so
Perfect.
true.
Oh,
Um.
Chumbo.
So yeah, it would have. I would have needed the final tribal council to
Hmm.
happen in order to see that. In addition, there are still some things about Chumbo's game. I'm like, was that really a move, or were you just like trying to start chaos and
Uh
shit?
huh.
Like, I still, to this day, there are some things that I would have to ask him about, because I literally don't know.
Yeah, yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, that would be a tough one,
It
because
depends. Okay.
him being a Miocene and making it all the way to the end is very commendable.
Oh, definitely. I think he made it way further than anybody even thought he would
Oh,
ever make it.
definitely. Way more than I thought, dude. I was like, what the hell's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Get this guy out.
Yeah, like why is he still in? What's it? What are we doing here?
Exactly.
I mean,
And that was another thing at Ponderosa I was so frustrated about. I was like, dude, like get this guy out. Like
please get him out already.
everyone is like literally cheering for him over here, and
So,
that's what I had a feeling of because
uh-huh.
he was the Mia scene that was the strongest,
Yeah.
perception wise. Like
Uh-huh.
he was
Then
playing the most visible game.
mhm. Then how did it
Ugh.
feel when at Final Four he got no votes against him? I think it was no votes. Yeah, it was 3-1, one on Celine, three on Andrew. Yeah. So how did it feel when
Ah,
he's playing such a visible game? Then at Final Four, he gets no votes. He's in no danger, and it's like, is this guy actually gonna walk to the end?
that's literally what it felt like. I was like, what the fuck
Is
is
this
going on
actually
right
gonna
now?
happen?
Like, dude, I couldn't comprehend it. I
Mm-hmm.
was literally in Ponderosa, like, oh my god, were they working together the entire time? I don't think that's true now, but like
Yeah.
at the time, it just didn't make any logical sense why Chumbo got as far as he did. I was like, it just didn't make any sense. I was like, what the hell's going on? And also, I would have been like kind of pissed off at myself because at my vote, I was campaigning to get Chumbo out because I feel like I could make the best case for to get him out over me.
Yeah.
And obviously, they voted me, which is smart and makes sense. But he would have gone to the end because of me, and I would
Yeah.
have been like, "Oh shit, I fucked up everyone
Definitely.
else's game."
Like shit.
Yeah, because I still think he would have won, Jumbo,
Oh
if
yeah,
he
he
got to the
definitely would have
end,
won if he got to the end.
hands down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if I would have voted for him. But
Yeah.
again,
Okay.
that's to the final Tribal Council.
Uh-huh. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so we touched on the game a little bit. Looking forward to next season, who do you think from your season deserves to be on All Stars, or do you expect to be on All Stars? And do you think you deserve to be on All Stars?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. Um, Obviously Andy because he won, and I, I know a lot of people think that I was probably kind of bitter at Celine and trying to like put one over on her or something with voting Andy and rooting for Andy. I to this day, logically and objectively, I still think he played the best game.
Yeah.
So I think that's totally deserved. I think he deserves to be on All Stars. Celine should be on All Stars. She played a fantastic game. Um, like the whole way. And this was her first time. Like, dude, she played
Mm-hmm.
such a good game.
Oh yeah.
Um, again, I would say Chumbo, but the more I think of some game moves, I'm like, what was he really thinking there? So I need to like sit down and talk with him about it. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
Chumbo, asterisk. I think he would be a good one to have on because he's such a big personality and a big character.
Oh, definitely.
And I think he'd be entertaining to watch. And
Mm-hmm.
especially because he had like the underdog edit a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, Lewis, I think, is a contender. I
Mm-hmm.
know they say like flippers never win, but neither do people who feel like they're on the bottom of their alliance. Just
Very
saying.
true. Very true.
Um, so he shook things up. Like he was the kind of one of the few people that made a big move this season. So I think he deserves a spot on there.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of who else. I'd love to see Rachel play again as like a second chances. I don't know. I just think she's got such a big personality and is
Mm-hmm.
kind of entertaining at times.
Oh yeah,
Um, she's
definitely.
got that spice.
She does have that
Um,
spice. It's true.
yeah, she's a little flamethrower.
Mm-hmm.
Flamethrower. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else, but yeah.
And then who would you want to see? Like you said, Rachel, but on a second chance season, what pre-mergers would you want
Oh,
to see?
pre-mergers. Oh, Manwinder.
Oh yeah, that's
I
the
want
first
to
one
say
everybody said when I've asked them that. It's like, who do you want to see second chances? Everyone's like, money.
Money. Like
Yeah.
he's so funny and such a good person. Oh my god. Like I'm so bummed I didn't get to meet him in the game,
Oh
Chumbo.
yeah,
Another reason why
Chumbo,
I'm mad at Chumbo.
because he
Ah,
took Manwinder from us exactly.
I know. Too
Damn,
soon. So definitely
very
Manwinder.
too soon. Yeah.
Um, I'd like to see Jack play again. I
Hmm.
think he knows a little bit more and is a little bit wiser to the ways of the game.
Yeah.
I think he deserves a second chance. Just trying to think. Hannah, I've heard a lot of people say Hannah. I didn't get to play with her as much
Mm-hmm.
because we only had the swap and then we ended up voting her out. Sorry, Hannah. But I'll throw Hannah out there too because people have been saying that she's a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Okay.
I can't think of anyone else. But
Yeah, no,
I'm sure
gotcha.
I'm missing someone. But
Yeah.
oh, and Zach, freaking Zach. Yes,
Zach,
I'd
yeah,
love to
of
see
course.
Zach again. He's
Mm-hmm.
such a
Hey,
good
hey,
person.
he had no votes against him too.
I know,
Very sad.
freaking rock draw.
Mm-hmm. It happens. That's what happens when you take the gamble, I guess.
So true.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, Zach.
Sorry, Zach. All right.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Uh, yeah. Is there anything else that you wanna kind of say, or you think has not been said yet that you want to tell everybody? Anything you want to let everybody know that's watching?
Um, I don't know, but I just had a really good time, and I'm hoping we could all be friends after this still.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
definitely.
Yeah,
Have some
like
game nights.
it's a game.
Yeah,
I
of
know it's
course.
tough,
Mm-hmm.
and I just hope everyone stays safe out there.
Definitely. You heard it here first.
Yes.
I can't speak. Stay safe. Have fun. Play in the game nights even if they're at 2 a.m.
Yes.
Exactly. It was
Please join us. We need
definitely.
more people.
We could always use more people. So if you're listening, join the game nights or else you better become a night owl.
Be there or be square.
Exactly. Nobody wants to be square.
Nobody wants to be square.
Exactly.
That's a good way to. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to be square.
So you better play the game night. So that's
Yes.
or else. Okay.
Or
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, so then that's all I got. Liv, thank you so much for helping make this season so great and being such a part of the great cast. And of course, sitting down with me doing this. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this.
Problem. This was so much fun.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I want to play again.
Right now, please.
I know.
Another season. We'll
Season real
see.
quick.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I actually don't even know like when All Stars is gonna be. We'll see with Boar. But I don't
Yeah.
know. That'll be fun. So everybody better stay tuned for that. I don't know anything about it yet, so
Oh, there's so
we'll
much
see.
mystery around
Th-
All Stars. Everyone's talking about it. It's
There's
so
even a lot of
elusive.
mystery for me. You see, I don't know.
Really?
I mean, I know a few things. I can reveal what I know is that I know where the season's located. I know how many people are going to be on the cast. I don't 100% know the cast yet or anything else involving the season. But I know where it's going to be technically located and I know the cast size. So that's about
That's
it.
gonna.
Not a whole
Oh
lot, not a
man.
whole lot, but
Still more than any of us.
that's
Any
true.
of us
That's true.
schmucks.
I do want to flex. I know the locations of all of the seasons up to season 20 because he has the roles in the server. So
Oh.
yeah. So I'm kind of cool. I know all those locations. I know where it's gonna be next.
Oh my God, you're so cool.
I've got that privilege. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah. Hopefully that'll be sometime in the near future. I don't know exactly when. We'll see. We'll see when Boar the mysterious man shows up.
For the
Uh,
mysterious man. I
he's
don't know if
very
you've even met him. He's very elusive.
he is very elusive. He's been busy lately. Uh, hopefully he comes back sooner or later. Uh, but yeah, I mean that's all I got. If there's anything else you want to say, you can go ahead and
Um,
say it. Otherwise, forget it.
yeah. I think I'm all set. I just had a really good time. So
All right, very
hope to
glad to
play
hear it.
again.
Of course, and we were so happy to have you, and so happy to potentially have you in the future on a season.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Survivor Armenia exit interview. This time, I have with me the sixth placer of Survivor Armenia, a member of an elite club, Johnathan. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing solid, you know. It's always if I couldn't win, I'm happy I got sixth.
Yeah, exactly. Sixth place is the best place besides first. That is statistically proven.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's just something about sixth place, man. It just feels good, you know. You get voted off like when there's not like too few people, but you know it's still the end game. You know, I'm honestly happy I can say I made the end game of the game. So
Exactly. And fun fact, the winner of All Stars, Alice, got sixth place her first season, and the winner of season one, Noah, got sixth place in All Stars. So like, pretty elite club.
Oh, for sure. If I come back, I gotta win then to live up to my name.
Exactly, you can get
Live
sixth
up
and
to
first
the
as well. That's how it
yeah.
works. Except for
Oh
me,
yeah, for
it
sure.
wasn't how it worked for me, but everybody else, that's how it works.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I had a lot of fun with the season. I guess you wanted to ask me a few questions, or
Yeah, definitely.
um,
We can get into
yeah.
your game a little bit and how you viewed the season. So my first question here for you was, in general, like how do you feel your game was, how you played, and is there anything you could go back if you could go back and change? Is there anything you would change about it? What would you do differently?
I honestly felt like I played a pretty good game. I think I honestly the biggest mistake I made was it was pretty clear Chumbo, Rachel and I were like just like a designated final three. I don't know if I would have gone through with that. I think I was for sure planning to blindside Chumbo before that, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't gonna tell anyone in the game that early on in case it got back to Chumbo because I didn't want to end up like Liv.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
wouldn't even yeah, but I wouldn't even say that was a fault of my game. I think it was just the swap kind of made it pretty clear. Like I think my funniest confessional was I didn't think it was random at first,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I know on paper it at first sounds like it's a good idea to be paired with my two closest allies, but it's like I'm being paired off with just my two closest allies. It becomes pretty obvious that we're probably going to be the three of us really tight in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the biggest mistake I made was waiting until the final six to make my.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought Selen was going to be with me, but because I thought she was on the bottom, which fair play to Selen, Andy, and the B5, I guess they're called, because they outplayed me there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I should have really gone with Liv, and then Andrew told me afterward he would have been okay voting out. Um, Lewis at the final seven, and then I could have got a final four pair, and I think Liv would have been with me after that.
Uh-huh.
So I think my biggest mistake was just waiting one vote to try and get rid of Lewis, which would have worked, but then I would have gone home fifth. So
Mm-hmm.
um like it's give and take, but yeah, I think my big mistake was not utilizing Liv to take out when really especially with the way the game was working. But it was. I think my game, the flaw of my game, was more so me getting outplayed than it was a mistake I made, which I feel like is more satisfying because it's not like you messed up. Like I feel like with Liv, she messed up by giving me Selen's name,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of starting to get cold feet on the move, and that's what kind of caused and then that's what caused us to out Selen's plan. So that's why, like she said, she's not satisfied with her game quite yet. I think that's why, because it was a mistake that she made, which I am proud of because it got me one vote further, was getting her to say that name.
Mm-hmm.
But I, uh, but I don't think my game was necessarily a mistake. It was just I played with people that happened to outplay me.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Kind of talking about you touched on the whole live boot and everything that happened and how she got cold feet. So if she did not get cold feet and she said, "Okay, let's just blindside Celine," do you think you guys would have gone through with that and Celine would have gone home, or did it just not happen because Liv got cold feet and then you guys outed her?
Yeah, I would have done it. I was at the bottom and I found a crack when Chumbo told Lewis and said, Liv was getting cold feet. You can see in my confessional, I was not happy. I love Chumbo to death. I think Chumbo is a better player than me
Mm-hmm.
because he played a better social game. I feel like I was kind of the strategic force behind Dog
Mm-hmm.
Gang.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the telling Lewis, I was upset. I was down to do it. I had voted for Celine previously, and and then Chumbo kind of revealed the secret. Liv was getting cold feet. Yeah, I would have done it. I was trying to work my way up from the bottom. That was something I could brag about in my final tribal was that I was the one who convinced Liv to flip,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't work out that way. But yeah, I would have absolutely voted out Selen there. It's not like I had no problem voting out Selen, especially early merge.
Yeah, definitely, and that makes sense. Uh, kind of touching on that kind of early merge game. What was the thought process with with the rocks, because you were, if I remember, you were potentially could have gotten rocked out in that. Were you never gonna waver in going to rocks for Lewis? Did you ever think maybe I should just vote him out and save myself? What was the feeling that round, and what were you thinking?
So I don't know if anyone remembers this, but I was ready to go to Rocks pre-merge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was ready to throw the challenge and let's go to Rocks, let's do it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I think it was a ballsy thing to do, but my whole thing was up until the end game, I wanted people to trust me, and the way you do that is doing really ballsy things like going to Rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was the one. I think like I was kind of the driving force behind the idea of nobody flip. Let's go to rocks. Let's do this. James has the idol. We need to make sure one of us wins immunity. I made sure Rachel. I mean, I didn't make sure just the way the first challenge worked out. I got the deciding pick on who won immunity, and
Mm-hmm.
I of course chose Rachel because she was my ally. But now I was ready to go home pre-jury, just to try and get power, and I feel like if Lewis hadn't have flipped, I would have objectively been the one running that game. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think if Lewis hadn't have flipped, I don't think I would have won because like it's impossible to control the game for an entire merge, but
Mm-hmm.
I would have gotten really far and I think I would have been a big threat to win had Lewis flipped.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, you were kind of thinking with the rock draws that you were going to show that you were going to go to bat for your allies, and that would get them to trust you more. Like you were ready to go, potentially get rocked out if it meant keeping your allies safe and advancing them in the game.
Oh yeah, of course. I would do it again. I mean the rock draw was just we had a 2/3 advantage at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the there was four of them. It was only Chumbo and me, which I wish Chumbo had won immunity or something, but that's just not the way the votes fell. But
Mm-hmm.
it was like I was like, all right, Chumbo and I are gonna put our butts on the line to try and get power in this game. And at the end of the day, I was like, with James we have the idol, we have the necklace. There's no reason to not drop. There's no reason to pull the cocker in,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going home. I'm
Yeah.
going home sick.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like it was either try and have power moving forward in the merge, or potentially be at the mercy of people who you voted against in the first vote. Like the thought did pop. Like I think it popped up for a second, just because it is a big risk. There
Mm-hmm.
was a 1/6 random chance I was going home,
Yeah, of course.
but I was like, like I was like I could flip to Lewis, but I was like, no, I got to go to rocks here. It was the idea of rocks I planted early on in the game, and now it's time to go through with it and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And so then immediately afterwards, Lewis flipping the next round, what were your thoughts on that? Because from the spec lounge, it kind of seemed like he just did all of you guys dirty. You just go to rocks for him, put your games on the line, and then he just flips over. Did you think that was a good move for him? And do you think what were your thoughts on the move, and how did you feel when it happened?
Oh, that is the only time I have been mad, legit mad at someone the entire
Mhm.
game. Especially because I reasoned with Lewis. I'm like, look, if you want to take James out, just wait till we're up by 2, because then it's a 4-4 split again. Now, of course, Lewis ended up flipping permanently.
Mhm.
Um, with regards to whether or not it was a good move, um, I don't know. Like, it's like I think it did make it easier for him to get farther in the game, especially from his point of view. He thought James was the GOAT, which James was my final 2 goal at that point. That's why
Mhm.
it also made me mad.
Yeah.
Because I was planning to take James to the final 2 with me. But, yeah, but he also like, not only did he make the jury mad, he made himself a strategic threat. And I
Mhm.
am biased against the move. I think Lewis is a great guy. It was truly just a game.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, but like objectively speaking, I think it helped him get further. It made it easier for him to get further in the game, but I think it made it harder for him to win.
Mhm.
And I think whether or not it was a good move based on that is in the eye of the beholder. Because if you don't get to the end, you can't. But
Yeah.
so
And then, so do you think Lewis would have had any chance of if he made the end? Do you think he would have had any chance of winning after burning potentially all of your guys' jury votes?
I mean, I don't know. A lot of it comes down to the final tribal speech.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't mad about it after about 10 minutes. But I don't think I would have objectively voted for him if he waited 2 votes to flip and
Mm-hmm.
orchestrated a blind side. Then it would have been different. I think it was that vote, but I don't think Rachel or James would have voted for him.
Mm-hmm.
He would have had. I think for him to really for sure win and not have to have a really good final tribal speech, he would have had to find a goat. And I don't like calling anyone out for being a goat. I think if he goes to the end with Andrew per se, I think
Mm-hmm.
he's got a shot at winning. But I
Uh-huh.
don't think it helped his chances. I'll say
Yeah.
that. I don't know how much it hurt his chance, but I do think it hurt his chances a little bit because I mean we saw Rachel in the final tribal. She I don't think Rachel was going to vote for Lewis, and I don't think James sure as crap wasn't going to vote for Lewis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That
So,
makes a lot of sense.
so it's like I would have potentially voted for him. Shumbo's a maybe. I don't think Shumbo would have either, but like to me, jury management isn't about just guaranteeing jury votes. It's not. It's also about making sure you have people on the jury still willing to vote if you give a good speech. That's part of jury management, not just making sure you have people who will definitely vote for you. It's also about getting enough people on the to be hesitant because those are the ones who decide the game, and who are
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
closed-minded.
That makes a lot of sense. And then speaking on the jury a little bit, of course, final outcome, Andy won 4-3. You were the last vote, essentially the deciding vote for Andy to win. What was your thought process behind the vote and everything that happened in Final Tribal Council? Why did you vote for Andy over Celine, and what do you make of all of Final Tribal Council?
I felt really bad for Celine. I was going in thinking I was going to vote for Andy, but I was basing my vote off the final tribal speech. I
Mm-hmm.
thought Andy, all the questions he actually got asked, I thought he did a lot better at answering the questions, gave very good answers to mine specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I voted for him. I think Celine had a great jury speech. I think she flipped all 3 people to her side, and she
Mm-hmm.
almost flipped me. Like I was going as literally as I was writing the votes, I was going back and forth between Andrew and Celine, and I think I switched 3 times. Like it was that close.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really hoping it wasn't a 4-3 vote because I didn't want to be the deciding factor because I think they both played great games.
Mm-hmm.
I literally as I was coming back from work, I was like, my vote's in, that's it. Because I'm like, don't flip, don't go back and forth because then you'll end up regretting it. Just go with your gut.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, oh, maybe I should have voted for Selin. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, I should have voted for Andy. So even after I voted, I
Mm-hmm.
was still very much undecided. Like that's how close it was. I think they played great games, and I think they both had a great final jury speech. I don't think you could have asked for a better final two in this.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think they're played two of the strongest games of the season, so it was definitely a very strong final two. I think 4-3 definitely is fitting for how good both of them played or how well both of them played. So it's been what 48 hours, maybe a little bit more since the game has ended. How are you feeling coming out of it, coming out of the game? Even though you were voted out a little bit ago, just being out of the jury out of the game, is it a relief kind of feeling that you don't have to be constantly checking Discord anymore? Or is it a
I mean,
what's
it
the
was
feeling?
a relief, but I got literally as soon as like literally today, I started another Survivor game.
Oh, okay.
Um, So like so the whole Discord relief thing isn't there. For
Yeah.
me it was like I was actually kind of sad because like I work a very boring job
Uh-huh.
and playing Survivor on Discord actually did help pass the time because I was literally thinking strategically for hours straight while I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I was thinking like that's where I done the woulda coulda shoulda and that's where I pinpointed the mistake I made which was not using live in the
Mm-hmm.
final 7. But like I'm pretty satisfied with the way I played. I mean, obviously, I'm already playing again. I don't know how many fans I have, but if I'm playing, why am I blanking now? I knew exactly what I was playing. Um, Hang on, I'll double check because
Yeah, go
but
for it.
I'm not gonna say what my strategy is, how I feel about people and stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you want that, they can read my confessionals. But I'm playing Survivor Aspen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's pretty fun. So like, I don't know how many fans I had. Probably not too many because I didn't send any great video confessionals. Unfortunately, life got in the way of that. But
You definitely have fans. Not everybody makes video
um,
confessionals, and that's completely fine.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to hear I have fans. But so. Oh man, I have ADHD. What was the question again? I want to make sure I answer it
Yeah,
completely.
yeah. It was just kind of how you're feeling coming off of it. You were talking about what you're doing right now, what the Discord
Right.
org that you're in right now.
Right. And then one thing is I hope I can keep in touch with people who I played Survivor Armenia with. This was my whole takeaway was just how fun it really was to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I always was a fan of Survivor. I didn't think I'd be good at it. I always thought I'd be a post swap boot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the fact that I made it to the final six, and even though I got outplayed from final nine onward, I'm pretty proud of how I played, especially for my first time. While the winner had played 15 previous times.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how did you feel about, by the way, when you found out that Andy had played a bunch of games beforehand? Were you kind of like, oh, okay, this makes sense now, or what was the thought process when you found out about that?
I found it hilarious the fact that he lied about it and everyone just bought it hook, line,
Mm-hmm.
and sinker. Like I said, when I watch Survivor, I'm a fan of the villains and stuff, and I think looking back, Andy is probably the main villain of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with all the lying he did, and I'm not gonna vote against someone for lying. Part of my reason, I didn't vote for Selen was I felt like she should have lied to me instead of ghosted me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she explained her explanation well enough as to why she didn't, but I still like the fact that Andy, when he was confronted with something, he lied about it instead of just lying. So
Mm-hmm.
in regards to that, I found it hilarious. I'm not a bitter player at all, so like, I found it hilarious. I thought his social game was automatically really good. My
Mm-hmm.
biggest takeaway was I was surprised it took him
You were surprised you took him what?
this long to win. I'm surprised it took him
Oh.
15 times to finally win because he was a great social player and he was the mastermind of the season. And I only figured it out right when I was going home. I was like, wait a minute. As soon as I start going after Andy, everyone's kind of starting to back away and distance them. I
Mm-hmm.
think Andy's running the. So I noticed it too late, which is always a good thing when only the people who are getting voted out are the ones who realize you're the one running the show.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Um, So yeah, I think his strategic game being as good as it was makes sense because he's had experience, but socially I'm just shocked to win and think it taints his win in any way.
Yeah, definitely. And then when everybody started coming to the jury, or initially it seemed like the jury wasn't too high on him, and then when everybody started coming together towards the end, they kind of started talking. They realized, wait a minute, Andy had so many deals and was so untouchable. Is Andy playing this like mastermind game? And the jury just kind of like turned around on him very quickly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that because it's like, like I said, a boring game is a good game for one person, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the person who's in charge of that boring game. I don't think the season was boring by any means, but I mean by boring game, I mean just not doing much, voting for the pecking order. Whoever's the one in charge of that is playing a great game. I'm against flipping for the sake of flipping.
Yeah.
So for Andy to keep four people together up until the final four when Andrew kind of went rogue and paranoid. And I think that is a testament to how good of a game he played, and I think he managed to control people really well. And I do think it was a team between him and Celine.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were a great team together. So I think once people realized just how in charge Andy specifically was of the game, how he was just kind of this silent person in charge of the game, I think people were like, oh, okay, his game makes a lot of sense because if you look at it, they weren't getting high on Andrew's game. Andrew was a guy who was afraid to make moves. And like, with me, he was like, I'm on the bottom here. Let's make a move. I'm like, all right, let's do this, And Lewis wanted me in, and he's like, look, I don't want to go to Rocks, man. I'm like, look, if you're on the bottom, you're gonna be going home at third anyway. Like just let's deal with it now. You got two Chumbo, and I'll vote for whoever you want to vote for, whether it be Andy or Celine. And I think that kind of thing, that's the difference between Andrew's and Andy's game was, Andy ran the show, and Andrew, while he played a quiet game, I think that highlights the difference between. And Andy's a good guy. I'm not gonna sit here and say I dislike anything. I just don't think he played a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Was like one guy was in charge, one guy wasn't. That's where you need to find the line between not flipping and.
Yeah, definitely, and that makes a lot of sense. They played very similarly in the sense that they were on the same side of the votes every time, but Andy was definitely way more in control and making moves than Andrew, who was kind of just seemingly along for the ride at that point. You make a great point.
Right.
Moving into next season. Next season is going to be All Stars. I wanted to ask you, who do you think on your cast do you expect to see or deserves to be on All Stars? And do you think you deserve to be on All Stars?
So for me, I think Andy obviously, and because he won, and the winner
Mm-hmm.
gets a free spot, and I
Yeah.
agree with that sentiment. Um, Celine, I think will be on. I think the final three. Jumbo is definitely a fallen angel. I don't know if Celine would be up for it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are definitely the top three.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fourth spot on the season. I don't know how many people are going on. I think I would be up for debate on the fourth season. Uh, like I think I'm a borderline all star from this cast, and
Mm-hmm.
as time goes on, I don't think I'd be an all star. So, um, I am biased towards myself. I would love to be on an
Yeah, of
all star
course.
season, and officially be declared an all star. So if I got asked to do all stars, as long as it doesn't conflict with Survivor Aspen, of course. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which then yeah, I'd love to be on it. I don't know if my Survivor Aspen requirements are like will take me out of the equation there, but I'd be up for an all-star season. I don't know if I 100% am an all-star. I think I border on. I
Uh-huh.
went to Raw. I got Live to Flip, and no one even realized that was my whole thing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely I was kind of the strategic powerhouse behind the alliance that lost. If I don't know, powerhouse is the right word. I don't want to stroke my own ego, but
Yeah, I know what you mean though.
I thought like in terms of the alliance that ended up losing, I thought I was the one kind of in charge of that alliance. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a case for me to be made on All Stars, but I think Chumbo, Celine, and Andy definitely deserve it before me, and maybe even Lewis. I think it's between Lewis, me, and Liv for kind of that fourth All Star spot,
Mm-hmm.
and it could go any way for it. Maybe Lewis ahead of me if I'm being objective, and then I would love to see Liv play again and learn from her mistakes because I think Liv is a very good player who unfortunately was just kind of a victim of her first time playing.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel, I think, should be a villain in Heroes versus Villains. And I would love to be brought back for another Boargs season because it was a lot of fun. I liked the old school vibe of it,
Mm-hmm.
and so even if I can't come back for All Stars or whatever reason, I hope I don't get lost in obscurity because I'd love to come back and play Survivor Boargs again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I will say you were an absolute pleasure to have on the season. So we definitely love to have you back at some point. Depending on what season we shall see in the upcoming, because me and the main host will have to talk about it. So nothing is confirmed or anything yet, but we would definitely love to have you back at some point in the future, depending.
Yeah, of course. I guess you seem to be ending, so I guess I'd ask the host because Heroes versus Villains is my favorite U.S. Survivor season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious how did the fans and the host was there a vibe that on whether or not I was either a hero or a villain?
Yeah. Between hero or villain, I think you would. From my perspective, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I think you would definitely be be more of a hero. You seem, you and like Chumbo especially, you were guys were the underdogs. You were kind of fighting in the merge to try to stay alive. I think you guys and your that alliance there, you definitely would probably be a hero. Rachel, if she didn't go so hard at Final Tribal Council, probably would as well. Chumbo would, but you said it earlier. You think like or not Liv. Andy's probably the villain of the season because he controlled stuff so much and lied to so many people, and you guys were kind of fighting against that and fighting against him. So definitely, I would say hero.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I always thought I'd be a villain when I played Survivor, but when you're on the bottom, it is hard to be a villain unless you go
Definitely.
full.
Very. It's very easy to root for the underdogs, and we're definitely rooting for you guys.
Oh
I
yeah, well, I appreciate the fandom there.
Of course. And then is there anything else you wanted to add or wanted to say to the people watching that you feel like you haven't said yet?
Trying to think, because I definitely don't want to exit this interview feeling like I forgot to say something.
Of
I already
course.
mentioned about Survivor Aspen. If you guys can go hashtag Johnathan for Survivor All Stars,
Get the
um,
hashtag started.
yeah, kind of showcase me because I want to do Boargs again, man. I had so much fun. I think this community is an amazing community full of great
Mhm.
people. I'm very happy the fans. I know they were rooting for Chumbo more, which it's Chumbo. That's completely valid to cheer for Chumbo more than me. I think I was cheering for Chumbo more than me. Um, so like, but I'm glad you guys were rooting for me and everything, and I'd love to come back and hopefully get you guys to root for me again, and maybe do a little bit better than sixth place. But it's we shall see for sure. And I'm glad you guys would like to have me back on because I had a lot of fun. This was great. I'm already participating in another Survivor organization, and I hope to be a bigger part of the community as it grows.
Definitely, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. It would, Jonathan. It was so great having you on here, and then having you on the season. You helped make it what it was, a great season, and I look forward to having you in the community for the foreseeable future and potentially back in the future.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you guys want me back on, hashtag Jonathan for All Stars.
Hashtag Jonathan for All Stars. Everybody better get that trending. There we
Oh yeah,
go.
get it on credit. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. I really appreciate you taking the time, and this will get uploaded probably sometime later this week.
Alrighty, thank you. Good luck with your All Star season, and if I can't be on it, I'll definitely be spectating.
Sounds great. We love to have more spectators or potential players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really appreciate it, man. Thank you for your time.